He marries with one sinister goal: to steal $1 million fortune. Discover the haunted truth. In the peaceful suburb of Oakwood Pines, where the stillness hung thick in the air, Sarah felt the darkness creeping in, wrapping around her like a cold blanket. Just days after Thomas moved in next door, everything changed. He brought along his charm, his sturdy hands, the aura of safety in a neighborhood painted with white picket fences. But beneath it all lay a twisted intent. She didn't know why, but her gut screamed at her his smile, inviting yet sinister. It began as a simple dinner invitation, an offer for help with the leaky faucet that refused to cooperate. "I'll fix it, Sarah," he said, his voice smooth like melted chocolate. "You take care of Lily." As she watched him work, her heart fluttered, though unease settled deep within her. Was it just her weariness from managing 2 jobs and raising an 8-year-old? Or was there something darker lurking in Thomas's kindness? Whispers from the kitchen invaded her thoughts as she tried to embrace this newfound companionship. "Mommy, do you hear that?" Lily's innocent question cut through the tension. Sarah's heart raced. Flickering lights and sudden cold drafts brushed against their skin like chilling fingers. They were trapped in an eerie dance with shadows they couldn't see. The crumbling floorboards creaked beneath them as if relaying secret messages from another realm. Sarah shook her head, willing her fears to dissolve. "It's nothing, sweetheart." But deep down, she felt something watchful, something waiting. After the dinner, she found herself in the attic, rummaging through her late husband's old boxes. Among the brittle papers was a forgotten life insurance policy, a staggering fortune that made her stomach churn. The thought sparked memories of happier times, happier days swallowed by grief. But then she found it, an old letter addressed to someone named Margaret. It revealed a different side of her husband, one filled with secrets. Panic flooded her veins. What else did he hide? She breathed, clutching the letter like it was a lifeline. Her knees buckled. Tomas's charm felt like a web entangling her. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The eerie silence returned to the house, punctuated only by Sarah's racing heart. She knew there was more to Thomas than met the eye. As she sought answers, her neighbors shrugged off her worries, enamored by Thomas's charm, blinded by a gloss of politeness. "You're just paranoid, Sarah," they said. But Lily's fear grew palpable, a whispering child's intuition warning of a danger they couldn't see. Then, one night after dinner, whispers floated through the air, intertwining with household sounds but resonating with a familiar echo. Her husband's laughter twisted into something vile. Before she could shake off the chill, Thomas entered the room, a sly grin spreading across his face, glimmering knife reflecting moonlight as if it held secrets of its own. "I was just about to tell you the real story behind the fortune," he sneered, shadows closing in around them. Panic clawed at Sarah, making her feel small, trapped between the past and an uncertain future. Could she escape the nightmare she had unknowingly invited? Sarah's breath hitched in her throat as she tried to comprehend the scene before her. The knife glinted ominously, a sinister spotlight drawing her attention to its edge. Her mind raced, searching for a way out while her limbs felt shackled, frozen in terror. "Thomas, you're scaring me," she managed to whisper, her voice trembling like a fragile leaf in the wind. The laughter continued to echo in her head, a ghostly reminder of what was lost and now warped beyond recognition. His grin widened, revealing more than just teeth. It was the gleam of a predator watching its prey. "Don't be scared, Sarah. I always thought you needed a little guidance," he said, inching closer. The shadows stretched across the floor, dancing with malicious intent. Lily stood behind her, clutching the edge of Sarah's shirt, eyes wide with a mix of fear and confusion. "Mommy, I don't like him." The innocence in her voice bore through the thick tension like sunlight through fog. Your daughter knows something you don't, Thomas replied, his gaze flickering to Lily, a glimmer of satisfaction bubbling in his chest. His focus wasn't on her but the forgotten treasure that lay beneath the remnants of a life Sarah had lost. I found a letter, Sarah stammered, clutching the aged paper tightly in her hand. It was addressed to Margaret. Do you want to tell me who she is? The question hung in the air, heavy with accusation. His confidence faltered for just a moment. The facade slipped, and for the briefest second, something darker flashed behind his eyes. You shouldn't dig into the past. It can only hurt you. What are you hiding, Thomas? She pressed. The shadows seemed to draw back, as if awaiting his response. His demeanor shifted, morphing from calm to predatory. Hiding? Oh, I'm not hiding anything. I'm simply preserving what's mine. This $1 million fortune, after all, is a legacy. A sickening realization settled in her stomach. He didn't care about her or Lily, he sought the money and was willing to destroy anything in his path to claim it. It was never yours to begin with, she replied defiantly, though her voice trembled like a fragile thread. Not yet, he said, the smile returning like a snake coiling back on itself. But with a little time, sweet Sarah, it can be. And I will do anything to make that happen. He stepped closer still, blurring the line between choice and consequence. Even if that means getting rid of distractions. Fear rippled through Sarah as she took a step back. You think you can intimidate me? Her voice was steadier now, though the dread pooled in her belly. She felt the weight of the attic above them, its dark promise urging her to retreat to the shadows. Lily, sensing the growing threat, constricted her grip. Mommy, make him go away. She begged, the tears spilling over as she pressed against Sarah's legs. Easy, pumpkin. Mommy's got this, Sarah murmured, desperately searching the room for something she could use. Whatever courage she had, it felt fragile as glass. Thomas chuckled, unfazed. You're right to feel trapped. This house it's always been a cage. Just like your heart. But I can help you, if you're willing to make a deal. The specter of her husband's hidden life loomed heavier than the shadows surrounding them. Time slowed, stretching taut, as Sarah was faced with a choice that could shatter what remained of her sanity. What deal? He leaned closer, his voice a silken whisper, join me. Together, we can unlock the fortune and erase the past. I can give you everything you desire. Just trust me. Behind him, the shadows seemed to twitch, drawing Sarah's attention, faint whispers echoing through the walls, clamoring for testing, betrayal, desperation, all tightening their grasp. The ticking clock overhead thundered in her ears and time began to slip away. Would she choose to join him in this dark alliance or fight back against the monstrous facade he deconstructed? In the cavernous silence, a sob echoed from Lily, an ominous reminder of what was truly on the line. Sarah's heart pounded violently as a sliver of resolve pierced the veil of darkness. I will never trust you, she spat, bracing herself for the fallout. But would she have time to escape before Thomas revealed his true hand? The moment hung heavy, filled with a suffocating silence that threatened to swallow Sarah whole. Thomas's laughter twisted in the air, a cacophony that clawed at her sanity. She glanced at Lily, whose small hands trembled, a lifeline she couldn't afford to lose. Every fiber of her being screamed to flee, yet all she could do was stand frozen before the man who had haunted her dreams. Thomas took another step closer, every inch of space between them intensifying the imminent danger. You think I'll hurt you? His voice dropped to a low, sugary tone that sent chills racing down Sarah's spine. I'm simply helping you see the truth. The truth about Margaret and what this fortune can do for us. Us? It was almost a whisper, confusion grappling with the growing dread. Imagine your life without the chains of your past, he said smoothly, his eyes glinting with something that felt disturbing. All the luxury you've ever wanted and all it takes is your acceptance. I'll grant you freedom. But only if you remove those blockades. An electric pulse of fear shot through Sarah. Chains. Was that what he saw her life as? She held tightly to the letter, a key to a mystery that could unravel her husband's legacy and Thomas's twisted desire. Why does it have to include me? She shot back, her voice gaining strength, desperation igniting latent courage. But Thomas merely smiled, unfazed. It has everything to do with you, sweetheart. You have what I need. With Margaret's secret unraveling, the truth is ours to mold. Together, it could all be ours. You, me, and the wealth. Just think about it for a moment, doubt flickered within her. What if he was right? What if finding this fortune meant freedom, not just from Thomas, but from the shackles of grief, the memories of her husband that haunted her nights? No. Her voice rang clear, the conviction surprising even her. Whatever plan you have, I want to be part of it. The air thickened, simmering with palpable tension. Thomas's eyes narrowed, the predatory glint returning as he resumed his slow advance. Then prepare for the chaos that will follow. Secrets have a way of revealing themselves, especially when they're dragged into the light. Suddenly, the wind howled outside, howling as if echoing her internal conflict. The temperature in the room dropped, and panic bubbled in her chest. Behind Thomas, the shadows pulsated, drawing closer as if hungry for despair. Mommy, please. Lily whimpered, her small frame shivering against Sarah's leg. The protective instinct surged in Sarah. She couldn't let him hurt Lily. She needed to find a way to escape now. Heart pounding, she scanned the room, looking for anything, a weapon, a way out, a distraction. Then she saw it, the kitchen knife still gleaming ominously on the table. It was only a few feet away, but so were the dangerous intentions of Thomas. Maybe you're right, she launched suddenly, her voice laced with feigned calm. Maybe I'll consider your deal. A flicker of surprise crossed his features, and she saw the briefest hesitation. But then, good choice, Sarah. Together we're unstoppable. He stepped back, allowing her the illusion of choice, the false sense of security that left Sarah feeling nauseous. Just give me time to convince you, he added, and at that moment, she knew that glimmer of malice returned, curling at the edges of his smile like smoke. Don't trust him, the whispers in the walls warned, growing louder. Sarah took a breath, time was running out. As she took a step toward the knife, something shifted in the darkened corners of the room. The shadows flickered and swirled with new energy, wrathful, as if recognizing a challenge. The house groaned as if alive, every crack in the wood breathing dread. Thomas, she said, voice steady as adrenaline clawed at her throat. You're underestimating what I'm willing to do to protect my child. His laughter exploded, wild and untamed, filling every void. What's coming one to be decided by your choices, Sarah. You are already caught in my web. And with that, the whispers turned to a wail, a crescendo of impending doom. Bristling through the room. Just before she lunged for the knife, the floorboards creaked, reverberating time like a clock winding down toward a dismal fate. As Sarah's hand grasped the hilt, she felt something cold and clammy brush against her ankle, a finger of shadow reaching up, clawing for her, hungry. Would this be the moment she broke free, or the point at which everything shattered? The knife was chilling against Sarah's palm, yet her heart pounded harder as she met Thomas's crazed eyes. The shadows behind him twisted like living nightmares, their forms reaching for her, wanting to drag her down into an abyss of despair. She couldn't think, only act. Get away from us. She shrieked, an unexpected ferocity erupting from deep within. Sarah swung the knife forward, its blade glinting dangerously in the dim light. Thomas dodged back, shock flashing across his face. You think that weapon gives you power? You're just as helpless as you've always been. His voice rang like a death knell, and laughter bubbled up uncontrollably, filling the air with a sinister echo. Mommy! Lily screamed, her frightened eyes darting between them. The weight of danger seeped into the room, pooling like a dark tide pressing against them. The shadows surged ahead, a monstrous wave, nearly palpable now, reeking of secrets long buried and anguish heaped high. Suddenly, the whispers morphed into scream-like breath, overwhelming her senses. Your blood must spill, the voices hissed, slithering around her. Sarah clenched the knife tighter, willing herself to stand her ground. Fear threatened to drown her, but she had an ally at her side, Lily. Stay close to me. With a primal scream, she lunged back, her instincts guiding her. She wouldn't let Thomas shack her in his sick games. The knife gleamed in the dark, yet her heart raced with uncertainty. What if she was doing exactly what he expected? You think fighting me will save you? He taunted, a twisted pleasure in his voice. The house knows your darkest fears, Sarah. You'll never leave. The walls seemed to close in, a circular prison edging closer and closer. She felt the heat of despair rising. The shadows flickered, stretching with each beat of her heart, their attention divided between Thomas and the desperate mother ready to defend her child. Look around you, he continued, his voice now a ghostly murmur. This place is alive with the weight of the past, the secrets that your husband hid, the sins that were buried along with him. They scream for release. With a burst of desperation, Sarah lunged again, gripping the knife as if it could sever the ties binding her to this nightmare. I want to let you manipulate us. You want to get your hands on Lily. Such fire, he cooed mockingly, stepping back but never losing that sinister smile. But you're just igniting the very shadows you fear. Then, like a match struck in darkness, the shadows began to writhe and swirl at her feet, pulling with a force that made her stumble. The air shimmered with electricity, a shuddering pulse that spoke of the chaos brewing. Sarah forced herself to breathe, to think, but dread constricted her. Lily. Hold on to my leg, she shouted, trying to anchor her daughter amidst the chaos. We're leaving. Suddenly, the shadows coalesced and lunged at her, a torrent seeking to engulf her. It was as if the house was recognizing her defiance, rattling with anger and vengeance. The floorboards creaked and groaned, shaking violently beneath her feet. Just as she teetered, a blast of cold wind erupted from somewhere deep within the house, smacking against her face like a slap. It pushed back the darkness for just a moment, a flicker of hope in the suffocating void. But Thomas's eyes glinted with malevolence. Your efforts are futile, Sarah. The past never forgets, and you're just a pawn in this game. You can't escape what you inevitably are. With that, the floor buckled, and shadows coiled around her ankles, dragging her down, mocking her attempts to rise. Mommy! Lily screamed again, helplessly watching as her mother struggled against the claws of the dark. Panic surged through Sarah. I want to let them take you, Lily. The house roared to life, the walls vibrating with pent-up rage and grief. Sarah felt her resolve harden, and as she raised the knife high, she aimed not at Thomas, but the shadows themselves. If this was her last stand, she would break them apart. But just as she struck downward, a blinding flash erupted from the knife, illuminating the entire room. It enveloped everything in white, a shockwave that threw Thomas back against the wall. The shadows screamed, writhing in agony, and for a split second, the terrible wails of lost spirits exploded into the air, drowning out all other noise. Then, as quickly as it began, the light flickered and then extinguished. Darkness filled the room again, thick like a fog. With a shudder, Sarah blinked, and the landscape had shifted. She was no longer standing in her kitchen. No. She was thrown back in time. What had she unleashed? Where are we? She whispered, fear creeping into her voice. And that when she heard it, a familiar voice, echoing from the depths of the shadows. Sarah, you've come to find me. Who was it? And how did they know her name? Questions swirled in the air as Sarah's heartbeat quickened. There was no escape. Only the chilling realization that the truth was only just beginning to claw its way out. What would she face next? The air was heavy with confusion, thick and cloying. Sarah turned, her heart pounding as she tried to make sense of the room surrounding her. Gone were the familiar confines of her kitchen, now she stood in a dimly lit corridor, wallpaper peeling away like the memories she had tried to bury. The shadows clung to the corners, shifting restlessly, whispering secrets too ghastly to hear. Sarah, you've come to find me, the voice echoed again, an eerie blend of comfort and cold dread. It had a familiarity that made her skin crawl. Who are you? She demanded, her voice trembling yet defiant. You know me, Sarah, the voice cooed softly, dripping with a sinister allure. You can always trust family. A shiver ran down her spine. She took a cautious step forward, each footfall resonating ominously against the floorboards. The sensation of eyes watching her crept into her consciousness, an unsettling presence that made her skin prick with anxiety. Mommy? Lily's whisper floated to her, fear lacing the word. She turned to find her daughter nestled close, her small figure nearly swallowed by the dark. I don't like this place, neither do I, Sarah admitted, forcing herself to remain steady. She needed to protect Lily, that was all that mattered. But we're together. We'll find our way out. With renewed determination, Sarah advanced further, drawn by the elusive voice echoing through the endless corridor. It swirled around her like a dark mist, tugging at her consciousness. Come closer, Sarah. There are truths hidden here, truths that will set you free. Lily grasped her hand tighter. But what if it's a trick? Then we'll face it together, Sarah replied, glancing down to meet her daughter's wide, terrified eyes. In that moment, she felt something shift in the air, a weight bearing down on her chest, suffocating her resolve. The walls began to pulse, throbbing like a monstrous heartbeat that syncopated with her own. She hesitated, the instinct to retreat clawing at her. But she could hear the whispers grow louder, mingling with incoherent screams of despair that seemed to echo from the house itself. Sarah, find me enough. She screamed towards the shadows, brandishing the knife as if it were a talisman against the darkness. I'm not afraid of you. A chilling laugh erupted from the depths, reverberating through the corridor like a death knell. You should be. You're standing on the ruins of your past. The floor trembled ominously beneath them, and the walls seemed to lean in closer. The shadows shrieked at the edges of her vision, the agonized faces of those who had suffered here materializing momentarily, as if begging for release. Each face twisted in pain, overlapping like a chaotic mosaic of torment. Mommy. Lily gasped, petrified. Make them stop. I'm trying. Sarah shouted, fighting to keep her fear in check. She felt trapped in a web spun by the house itself, thick and sticky, threatening to ensnare them both. Then, she stopped. A soft laugh echoed from the end of the corridor, slow and deliberate. As Sarah squinted into the darkness, a figure emerged from the shadows, a silhouette that seemed all too familiar. Don't you remember me, Sarah? The silhouette stepped forward, revealing a face she never thought she'd see again. Greg? Her breath caught in her throat. Is it really you? Greg's smile was a wicked curve, but his eyes held a depth that sent a shiver down her spine. I've been waiting for you to come home. You can't escape your roots, Sarah. A wave of realization crashed over her. This was not just another haunting, this was something much bigger, something twisted and monumental that reverberated across time and space. Mommy? Lily clutched her arm tighter, sensing the shift in energy. Now, Sarah was faced with a dreadfully familiar choice: trust in the dark figure or run blindly into the depths of shadow that promised no safe haven. The hall pulsed with anticipation, the walls echoing with a ghastly chant. Choose wisely. Greg's voice dripped with malicious glee as he stepped closer, reaching out his hand. The shadows writhed, thickening, pulsing. Like a living entity. Sarah steeled herself, the weight of the knife in her grip grounding her. I'll fight. I want to let you take us. But who was the real enemy? She had faced countless horrors before, yet this was family. Could betrayal come from the ones you loved most? Lily's frightened voice broke through her thoughts. Mommy, what do we do? As darkness closed in once more, Sarah felt trapped between two worlds, two legacies that sought to claim her. This was no longer just about survival, it was about uncovering the terrible truth that connected them all. But each heartbeat echoed a haunting question in her mind: if she ventured deeper into this floor of despair, was she heading towards salvation or damnation? And with that, the shadows surged forward, as she found herself slipping between them, lost in a web of family secrets that could destroy her or set her free. Who truly held the power, and how far would she go to discover the truth? Sarah felt the walls closing in, the darkness tightening around her as if it were a living thing. The figure of Greg, once a comfort, now loomed like a specter of dread. She glanced at Lily, her daughter's wide eyes shimmered with tears, caught in a maddening world where love twisted into threat. "Mommy," Lily's voice cracked. "Is that really him?" "Stay behind me," Sarah ordered, gripping the knife tighter, feeling its cold steel familiar and wrong against her palm. The shadows whispered, taunting her, their breath icy. "This isn't real. He's not Greg." "Oh, but I am," Greg said, stepping forward as shadows seemed to swirl around him, enhancing his sinister presence. "You never wanted to let go of the past, Sarah. That's why you're here. Family? We are intertwined. Forever." The walls began to ripple, reflecting memories Sarah once cherished: childhood laughter, family picnics, yet twisted with the lurking horror of abandonment and betrayal. The wallpaper peeled back, exposing the rotten wood underneath. It smelled of mildew and decay, and she could almost taste the bitterness of her broken dreams. "Mommy. I'm scared." Lily was trembling, too small for such malevolent shadows. Sarah felt as if her grip on reality was slipping, warping like the images surrounding her. "Lily, listen to me," words caught in her throat like shards of glass. She searched the darkness, looking for the flicker of safety. "We need to find a way out. Just hold on." The shadows closed in, swirling mournfully, and Sarah could hear the mournful cries of those who had suffered here, those who had been molded by pain and regret. Alas, none had ever come out whole. She could feel the weight of their despair upon her shoulders, the burden of family secrets pressed down like chains. "Don't you want to understand?" Greg's voice had become a siren's call, smooth yet laced with venom. "There's so much more at stake. You have a right to know the truth about your mother, about us." "Us?" She spat. "You're a monster." "Am I?" He stepped closer, and the shadows wrapped around him like a shroud. "Or am I merely a reflection of your desires? Longing to escape the darker corners of your own mind?" The air turned frigid, a sudden chill that danced along her spine, seeping into her bones. Sarah's heart raced as she turned her back to Greg, trying to shield Lily from the sinister reality. "Mommy, please." Lily's voice trembled, pulling Sarah from the brink of hopelessness. "I don't want to be here. I want to go home." "Me too, sweetheart," Sarah replied, fighting the serpentine pull of despair, reaching deep for the strength that had sustained her in life's darkest moments. "But we can't let him win. Together, we'll break free." She hesitated, the knife gleaming ominously as uncertainty wove through her mind. What was the truth? Was it in Greg's promises or the unspeakable darkness she felt wrapped around her? "Sarah," he crooned softly, drawing nearer, his eyes glinting with a madness that was both inviting and terrifying. "Why deny your lineage? For so long you've fled from us, but it's time to embrace your fate." A sudden pulse of foreboding surged through the corridor, reverberating in the very marrow of her bones. The shadows began to compress, shifting from mere presence to a tangible force, clawing at her consciousness. "Run!" she shouted suddenly, adrenaline pumping through her. She grabbed Lily's arm and pulled her back, darting into the pitch-black corridors that branched out like a spider's web. They stumbled through the darkness, their breaths sharp and frantic. As they raced down the hallway, the walls closed in around them, shifting like the very fabric of reality. "Where do we go?" Lily cried, her little voice strained with fear. "Anywhere but facing him," Sarah replied, her heart hammering as the shadows howled behind them, a cacophony of anguished cries and taunts. As they turned a corner, a flicker of light appeared like a candle in a vast void. "That way," Sarah urged, almost stumbling toward it. Was it a beacon of hope or another trap? Before they could reach it, there was a sudden lurch of darkness. The haunting laugh echoed again, deep and mocking. "You can't escape your destiny, Sarah. You belong to us." The light flickered, and they both paused, fear gripping them as the shadows surged around them, threatening to consume everything in their path. "Mommy!" Lily shrieked, the sound slicing through the din of darkness. Sarah clenched her teeth, unwavering. "I want to let him take you." But as they neared the light, a horrible truth coiled tightly around her heart. Was the light truly a way out, or just a false promise? And just as Sarah reached for the glimmer, the ground trembled violently beneath them, and everything began to unravel. With a suffocating gasp, she realized, in this nightmare, the greatest danger might not be the shadows but the very truth she sought to uncover. Could she dare to find out what lay beyond the light? The corridor seemed to whisper her doubts, filling her with dread. What would they face at the end of this twisted journey? The flickering light ahead seemed to pulse with a rhythm all its own, inviting yet disorienting. Sarah clutched Lily's hand, squeezing it tight as a shiver trickled down her spine. What lay in that light? Freedom or another endless nightmare? "Mommy, let us go," Lily urged, her voice quivering like a fragile leaf swaying in a storm. Sarah was torn, heart racing, battling the icy voice of fear creeping into her mind. But something in the shadows shifted. Greg's laughter echoed louder, chilling her to the bone. "You think running toward the light will save you? You're only protecting what's already been claimed." With each beat of her heart, Sarah felt the grip of despair tighten. Panic threatened to consume her. The shadows appeared thicker, more alive, pressing against them with an urgency that felt almost intent on dragging them back into the depths. "Mommy." Lily's eyes widened with terror, and in that moment, the weight of responsibility crashed down on Sarah like a tidal wave. She was the bastion between her daughter and this consuming darkness. "Hold on tight," Sarah shouted, yanking Lily as she sprinted toward the light. It seemed to grow dimmer the closer they got, flickering like the last remnants of a dying star. The shadows screamed around them, their wails a cacophony of anguish and regret. Just as they reached the threshold, the floor gave a sharp lurch beneath their feet, splitting wide like a hungry maw. Sarah teetered on the brink, glancing back at the swirling darkness, then at Lily. "Jump!" she yelled with every ounce of strength she had left. They leaped forward just as the ground cracked apart. Sarah felt the rush of air sweep toward them, the shadows snapping like hungry jaws behind. Everything fell silent as they landed not quite onto the floor, but a soft, yielding surface that felt almost like grass underfoot. The light enveloped them, and they found themselves in a vast, empty room. Confusion washed over Sarah as she blinked away the bright glare. The room was stark, white walls reflecting back their pale faces. There were no windows, no doors, just an oppressive stillness that hung over them like an executioner's noose. "Where are we?" Lily whimpered, her small voice breaking the suffocating silence. A chilling realization fell upon Sarah. "I don't know. We shouldn't be here." From the far corner of the room, a low echo began. Like a choir of lost souls rising from the depths, it grew stronger, louder, until it was impossible to ignore. Sarah, it was Greg's voice, smooth as ice, cutting through the stillness. "You thought you could escape so easily? What do you want?" Sarah demanded, holding Lily protectively against her side, her heart racing with dread. "To bring you home," he replied, stepping into view, his face marked with an unsettling calm. "You've always wanted that, haven't you? To be part of something bigger, something true. Not like this." Sarah shouted defiantly, her fingers tightening around the knife. "You're a monster." Greg smiled, a knowing, cruel twist of his lips. "Maybe monsters can lead to the truth, Sarah. After all, you are one of us." Suddenly, the walls began to shake, the floor vibrating beneath their feet. The quiet room grew frantic with dark energy, shadows swirling and creeping menacingly from the corners. "No!" Sarah screamed, trying to hold her ground. But the air thickened, pushing against her like a crashing wave, dragging memories into the very fabric of reality. Faces of strangers morphed into twisted semblances of her family, accusations and grief painted on their features. "This isn't real," she shouted anew, panic flourishing. "You can't take us back. Your truth lies within, whether you accept it or not. It will consume you," he taunted. A blinding flash cut through the darkness, disorienting her, and each pulse felt like a hammer against her heart. Shadows began to swirl wildly, coiling tighter around them, sapping her strength, whispering fears of betrayal. With each echo of Greg's laughter, the shadows morphed into images, past mistakes, fears she had buried deep, all clawing at her soul. And in that moment, she understood. What if Greg was right? What if embracing the darkness was the only way to break free of it? Lily, she whispered urgently, uncertainty creeping in as she gauged her daughter's stare. We have to fight it. Together. But before they could rally, the ground shook violently, and the shadows surged with terrifying force. Is the truth worth chasing? Greg's voice sliced through the air, eerily calm. The answer may crumble everything you hold dear. As the walls closed in, Sarah grappled with the spiraling chaos, adrenaline fueling her every instinct. Was the path to salvation tangled in this truth? Or would it seal their fate forever? The very essence of the room warped around them, shifting into a dark storm of recollections and agony. As they grasped for footholds in this relentless place, Sarah had to choose, dive deeper into the darkness or seek the light, even if it meant confronting the truth she dreaded. Could their hope survive in a place where shadows promised to devour the light? With that thought hanging heavy in the air, the room erupted into chaos, and the floor beneath her threatened to collapse again. The ground erupted beneath them, and Sarah braced herself, adrenaline seeding raw panic in her chest. The cacophony intensified as the memories clawed at her, every whisper echoed like a wound torn open. The shadows shifted, dark tendrils extending to snatch at her feet, pulling her down into the abyss of regret. Stay close, Lily. She shouted, her voice trembling, desperate to anchor her daughter in this chaotic storm. Lily's grip squeezed tighter, her small body trembling beside Sarah, a steadfast reminder of what was at stake. The shadows enveloped them, distorting the sterile white of the room into a menacing kaleidoscope of darkness and light. Greg's laughter rang out again, a haunting melody that played on her worst fears. You think you can escape this place? You belong here. His voice seemed to seep into the very walls, hissing secrets that made Sarah's skin crawl. Lily. Sarah's heart raced, her fear mixing with sheer determination. We need to get out. She glanced around, frantically searching for an exit, but the walls seemed to close in, mocking her with their blank, unyielding surface. A sickening dread gripped her throat. They were trapped. As if reading her thoughts, Greg gestured mockingly at the shadows swirling around them. They want you to understand. They are your demons, Sarah. Your choices brought you to this moment. No. Sarah screamed, shaking her head as tears brimmed in her eyes. She felt every word as a heavy weight, each accusation sinking deeper into her soul. I want to let you do this. The shadows seemed to pulse with ferocity, and the cacophony swelled, whispering her insecurities, her failures. The vision of a ghost-like figure flickered before her, the face of her lost sister, eyes sunken in sorrow. You failed me, it mourned, the voice a chilling wisp of despair. No. Sarah cried, cringing away from the apparition, but it lingered, pressing her with the burden of guilt. You weren't there when I needed you. Keep running, Greg purred, reveling in her turmoil. But running makes you weak. Weakness leads to the dark. Sarah's heart pounded in her ears, drowning out all reason. We have to face it, Lily. We can't let it win. She glanced down at her daughter, whose wide eyes shimmered with fear and confusion. Mommy, I'm scared. Lily whimpered, her voice barely a whisper, and that fear was like ice piercing Sarah's heart. I know, baby. But I can't let it take you. She turned back to face the shadows, her resolve hardening. If confronting her past was the only way to escape, then that's what she would do. With renewed determination, she stepped forward, feeling the ground pulse beneath her as if it responded to her bravery. I am not defined by my past. I am stronger. The shadows screeched in response, twisting violently, recoiling as though each word was a flare in the darkness. But it was maddening. The darkness hungered for her surrender, pulling at her with relentless ferocity. Greg's face twisted in mirth as he watched her struggle. You really believe you can conquer this? Enough! Sarah shouted. You've taken enough from me. In that moment, she felt power surge within her, ignited by a flicker of hope. She reached for the knife, gripping it as a lifeline. Lily, hold on to me. But just as she prepared to strike against the encroaching shadows, the walls shimmered, and the light fractured, revealing a pathway lined with distorted mirrors. Each reflection showed a different version of herself, broken, defeated, but also powerful. The ground shook violently, and the echoes of laughter morphed into howls of rage as the shadows twisted into terrifying shapes. Leave now, while you can. Sarah hesitated, the weight of the choice suffocating. Would this be her moment of liberation or destruction? Mommy, the shadows are reaching for me. Lily cried, her voice a pierce through the chaos. Desperation clawed at her throat. Could she turn her back on this monstrous truth, or would it consume them both? With clutching shadows surrounding her like widows mourning a lost love, Sarah felt the urgency rise. Lily, we need to move. Now. They sprinted toward the shimmering path, the shrieks of the darkness erupting behind them like a relentless storm. The walls seemed to bend, almost collapsing, as if they too realized the stakes. Will the light offer salvation, or will the shadows drag them back? Would this frantic rush to escape lead to freedom? Each breath fell heavier as the specter of Greg loomed larger, his laughter echoing like a dark promise. With dread pooling in her stomach, Sarah leaped toward the reflection, heart pounding, hoping for a chance at survival. What lay at the other end? As she crossed the threshold, everything erupted once more, and she felt the darkness clawing at her heels, desperate to pull her back into its world. Would she and Lily emerge, or would they be lost to the shadows? The world snapped back into focus with a violent jolt. Sarah stumbled, disoriented, as the reflective surface morphed into a warped hallway. An oppressive silence replaced the howling chaos, yet the shadows breathed around her, still lurking, still dangerous. She could feel their eyes hungry, searching. Mommy? Lily's voice trembled, pulling Sarah from the clutches of her confusion. Hold on, sweetheart. She gasped, scanning their new surroundings. The hallway was dim, lit only by flickering overhead bulbs that buzzed ominously. The air was thick, heavy with dread. The walls were lined with portraits, all staring down with hollow eyes, their expressions frozen in anguish. Lily clutched her hand tighter, every flicker of uncertainty mirrored in her gaze. Where are we? I don't know, Sarah stammered. But we have to keep moving. The flickering lights twisted shadows across the floor like dancing phantoms, and the memories from the mirrored realms swirled in her mind, each reflection a possible fate. As they cautiously stepped forward, a chill licked at her spine, urging her to look back. The air grew colder, and she swore she could feel Greg's presence lurking just beyond the shadows. The sound of his laughter echoed faintly, taunting, reverberating with the whispers of the past. Feel that? She said, her voice barely above a whisper. I think he's close. They quickened their pace, but no sooner had they moved than Lily gasped, stopping dead in her tracks. Mommy! The pictures, they're moving. Sarah turned, her heart lurching. In the portraits, the faces twisted and writhed, faces of people she recognized, intermingled with grotesque figures all longing for freedom from the frames that imprisoned them. Each frame seemed to pulse with emotion, fear, despair, rage. It was like a gallery of her nightmares, all captured in a maddening cycle. The floorboards creaked beneath them, echoing every pounding heartbeat. We can't look, Sarah urged, pulling Lily away. But the girl was transfixed, her wide eyes reflecting the torment trapped within the images. Mommy, can we help them? Fear and compassion clouded her small voice, but Sarah felt a wave of desperation crash over her. They're lost, Lily. Just like us. She hissed, urgency rising in her throat. We need to move. As they inched forward, the hall appeared to stretch infinitely, the end nowhere in sight. Just when hope felt like a distant dream, the dull throb in her chest escalated into a frenzy. A door loomed ahead, a faint light shimmered beneath it, promising safety. Look! A way out. Lily pointed, and for the first time, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. They dashed towards it, but as they approached, the laughter returned, intertwining with an awful whisper. "You cannot escape, only face the truth." The words chilled her. She hesitated, heart hammering as she reached for the doorknob. The shadows stirred behind them, swirling in frantic, desperate despair, as if sensing their flight. What if it's a trap? Lily's voice wavered with fear, peeling back the layers of Sarah's resolve. "Then we face it together," she responded firmly, and her grip tightened around her daughter's small hand. With a deep breath, Sarah swung the door open, ready to confront whatever darkness lay beyond. The light spilled out, illuminating the shadows and swirling around them in chaotic agony. But as she stepped through, she finally understood the truth was about to be laid bare. A vast chamber awaited them, filled with fractured mirrors and flickering candles, casting long shadows. In the center of the room stood Greg, his twisted grin growing as he motioned to the chaos surrounding them. "Welcome back, Sarah. Did you miss me?" The air thickened with an overwhelming sense of dread. The flickering candles began to extinguish one by one, each blown out a frail thread of hope snipped away. Dark figures loomed closer, whispering a chorus of taunts and regrets, as Sarah's resolve was tested one last time. What kind of truth awaited? Would they shatter the last remnants of the darkness, or be consumed by it? "Don't be afraid. Embrace your past." Greg's voice lingered like smoke, a sinister chant urging her to surrender. With trembling hands, they clutched each other tightly, facing the horrors that awaited. Would they find salvation, or was this the end of their struggle? In the heart of the chamber, shadows thickened like a storm cloud, swirling with a life of their own. Sarah's heart raced, pounding against her ribcage like a prisoner trying to escape. She tightened her grip on Lily's hand, each squeeze a reminder of her purpose. They had come too far, faced too many horrors, to yield now. "Mommy, I'm scared." Lily's soft voice trembled beneath the overwhelming darkness. But Sarah refused to let fear seep into her bones. She felt panic rise, but she swallowed it down. This was it. They would confront Greg in whatever sinister truth he held over them. "Together, Lily. Always together," she breathed, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Welcome home," Greg said, his voice laced with false sweetness. "You see, there's a reason you're back here, Sarah. The shadows are a reflection of your pain, your choices. You can't run from them." As the last candle flickered out, they stood shrouded in menacing gloom, the air heavy with feel of malice. The dark figures pressed closer, their eyes glinting in the absence of light, hungry for despair. "Face it, Sarah," Greg continued, "this is where you belong. You have the power. Let it consume you." "No." Sarah shouted, the word echoing around the chamber and sending tremors through the shadows. "I want to let you control me. You don't define me." The shadows shivered, uncertain under her fierce declaration. For a moment, she felt a surge of warmth and ember ignited by her defiance. It whispered of hope and courage, it coursed through her veins, urging her to push back the darkness. "Lily, remember the light. It's our strength." Her voice rang powerful, a beacon amidst the encroaching dread. With newfound determination, she thrust the knife forward, its blade catching a flicker of light that felt like divine intervention. "You will not take my daughter from me." The shadows recoiled, hissing and swirling, as if struck by lightning. In that instant, the dark figures froze, hesitating as their energy faltered against her fierce will. "See, Sarah?" Greg's smile twisted, turning malevolent. "Now you're stepping into the darkness willingly. This is all part of the game. The only game is the one you've made for yourself," she countered, stepping closer, feeling the weight of the shadows pressing around them but refusing to allow them any ground. "You may have haunted me, Greg, but I will not be your puppet." With that declaration, Sarah drove the knife down into the ground, an act of symbolic defiance, an anchor breaking the oppressive hold of despair. Instantly, tendrils of light burst from the knife, blinding in their brilliance, illuminating the depths of the chamber as they stretched outward, pushing back against the shadows. No longer encumbered by the weight of her fears, Sarah felt herself buoyed by an overwhelming force. A wave of light and love for Lily surged through her heart, overpowering the darkness. The figures lurched back, shrieking in agony as the light flooded the room, dissolving their twisted forms into mist. "Lily!" Sarah called out, her voice echoing strength. "Take my hand." Together, they stepped forward, the light enveloping them in a cocoon of warmth. The chamber transformed around them, the nightmare unraveling like a tightly wound spool. Before them lay an open door framed in golden light, a path leading away from the darkness they had fought so hard to escape. It beckoned them with promise, a chance of freedom, of renewal. Greg's face twisted in rage as shadows swirled around him desperately, clinging to him like a lifeline. "You can't leave. You're tied to this place." The door pulsed brighter, and Sarah turned to Greg, her gaze steady. "I will break free of this cycle. I am no longer a prisoner of your lies." With that final declaration, she took Lily's hand firmly and raced toward the door. The shadows writhed, twisting and howling in despair as the light behind them grew, illuminating the path to a future free of darkness, filled with hope and possibility. The moment they crossed the threshold, the world erupted in brightness, the horrors of the past fading into echoes woven into the fabric of time. Sarah's chest tightened, but relief flooded over her instead of fear. They were free. "Mommy, we did it!" Lily exclaimed, her voice bursting with joy. "Yes, we did." Sarah pulled Lily close, savoring the light streaming through the open sky. They stood, hand in hand, bathed in warmth, the specter of the past finally vanquished. As the sun set on the horizon, a serene light washed over them, each moment growing sweeter in the embrace of their newfound freedom. As they turned to walk away from the shadows, Sarah's heart swelled with affection for her daughter. Together, they stepped into a future unshackled, where the ghosts of the past no longer haunted their present. And with that, they walked on, leaving the shadows behind, full of hope for the life waiting ahead. You need to subscribe now. You don't want to miss what comes next. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about how Sarah fought back. And don't wait even one more second. Share this story with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion. Your support is crucial.